Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Miller, would you please take roll?
Mayor Walker. Mayor Pro Tem Jacobs.
Here.
Councilmember Lynch. Councilmember Squires.
Here.
Councilmember Earl.
Here.
Councilmember McCarge.
Here.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Here.
Mr. Miller, show that Mayor Walker and Councilwoman Lynch are absent and excused. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Councilmember McCarge.
No.
Squires.
Squires, I'm sorry.
I move to approve the agenda for the regular council meeting for Monday, September 9th, 2019, as presented.
Support. Support by Councilmember Earl. Any discussion from the public? Yes.
It's just a comment, because somebody had asked me, usually during a public hearing, if you have public hearings, then the council acts on it during the action part of the agenda, and that's not the case tonight. But there's a reason for that, isn't there?
Correct.
Could you kind of explain?
I can explain. Yeah, we have a lot of important issues, and most of the council members that I talk to feel like all council members should have a voice in it and should have a vote and a say in it. And since we are missing 2 of them, we will listen to public comments, but then we will probably act on it at the next meeting. That's why we are not voting tonight. Wait, we're not discussing that right now.
But I'm saying we're asking for the approval of the agenda, right?
Correct.
And what my question is on the agenda, we're supposed to have notification of public hearings and that. And my
it's on there.
question is where do you find that information? Because I don't do the internet. And when I come to the,
Mr. Miller?
The notification was done in the newspaper, the Observer and Centric newspaper, and also it was
I have
posted.
2 of the papers Thursdays and Sundays, and there's nothing in that.
It was before the date of the public hearing, and it is also public notices posted in the hallway at City Hall.
Okay, and the problem is that City Hall was closed on Friday, and I couldn't get myself an agenda or that.
The notice was there more than 14 days in advance of this meeting.
Okay,
It wasn't in the Observer. I have 2 of them right now to prove it.
where's, again, what were the notifications? It's the same, excuse me, one at a time. What is the publications that they were put in?
It was in the Observer and the Centric newspaper.
Westland
And
Observer? Eccentric?
Westland, Livonia, in Canton.
I believe that's the same one that we posted.
Right, so,
Okay, we're not all talking. Excuse me. We're not gonna all talk. It's the same place we post the Parks and Rec Commission meetings, I believe, the DDA meetings, the Planning Commission meetings, the same ones we've been doing for years. So this isn't anything new. That's where it's been posted, so. Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, at this time, we have a promotion, item 5, recognition. I'm going to call up Fire Chief Kathy Harmon for the promotion of Fire Lieutenant Ryan Sharrow to Fire Engineer. Chief?
Good evening, Council and Mayor, Mr. Doherty. It's a great pleasure tonight that actually I'm promoting a firefighter to engineer. Ryan Sharrow's been with us since 2014. We had a competitive testing process last month. Ryan came out number 1. In addition to his brothers in the fire service and some of the police that are here and all these fine citizens, his family's here to support him. His wife Autumn will be pinning on his badge. With him are his son and his daughter. His daughter's name is Bailey and little Jackson. His mother and father are both here. Paul and Marianne, and his grandparents are both here, John and Brucine So if Ryan, would you come up, please, and take the oath?
Mr. Miller?
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, the undersigned Ryan Charo,
I, the undersigned Ryan Sharrow,
having been duly appointed the rank of engineer
having duly been appointed the rank of engineer
of the City of Garden City Fire Department,
of the City of Garden City Fire Department,
do solemnly swear that I will support
solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the Charter of the City of Garden City,
and the Charter of the City of Garden City,
and that I will endeavor to secure and maintain
and I will endeavor to secure and maintain
an honest and efficient administration
an honest and efficient administration
of this office,
of this office,
free from partisan distinction
free from partisan distinction
or control,
or control,
and to perform the duties of said office
and to perform the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Mrs. Sherrill, we did sharpen the pin just in case. But we do have a medical crew on standby. It is above his heart, so.
What's that?
We'll just announce Dan.
Okay, now, Mr. Plamondon, I'll call him up for the winners and the sponsors of the 2019 Great Bacon Run.
Excuse me, jeez.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, citizens of Garden City. Proud to be here tonight to give a summary of this year's Bacon Run, give some recognition to this year's winners, as well as to the beneficiaries of this year's race proceeds. Before I do that, this year's Great Bacon Run was held on Saturday, August 17th. We had 444 participants that participated from over 110 different cities throughout Michigan. We actually had a participant that traveled all the way from New York City to participate in this year's event. The title sponsor for this year's event was the Buccelli Group. Additional sponsors included Cintas, Remax Cornerstone of Westland, Garden City Pawn, McKenna Associates, Garden City Hospital, and the Schuler Group of Canton. This year's provider of the post-race bacon festivities was Dirty D's Barbecue, a newly up and running establishment here in Garden City. And this year's race, we chose to give proceeds to 3 different beneficiaries of from the race. The first 2 were the Home Food Pantry of the Maplewood Center, the Garden City Community Coalition, and new to this year's race, we allowed the title sponsor to pick a charity of their choosing, and they chose St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So with that said, I'd like to call the winners that are in attendance up one by one. First, I'd like to invite VJ Penlick. He was our male winner in the mile run. He's from Garden City. VJ's here. Next up, we have Autumn Cox, who was the female winner of the 1 mile run. Autumn's here. Next, we have Landon Lawrence. He was the winner of the kids run, also from Garden City. Emma Slater, she was the winner of the kids run, also from Garden City. In the male 5K division, we had Doug Bonman from Wyandotte. And additional winners that are not in attendance, Eric Barr in the 10K from Canton, Heidi Schmidt, she was the female 10K winner, and Alexis Pickerel, also from Canton, she was the 5K female winner. So these are our winners for the 5K. Next, I'd like to take a minute to recognize the first of our 3 recipients from race proceeds from this year's event. I'd like to call up Megan Sheeran from the Family Resource Center. She's the Community Resources Coordinator. We'd like to present her with a check for $1,000 that will go to the Garden City Home Food Pantry. Next up, I'd like to call up Pat Ryback. She is the Community Sports Specialist associated with the Garden City Community Coalition. And our last check we'd like to present is to the Bocelli Group. Representing the Bocelli Group is Jeff Van Dam from the Building Department. And we'd like to present a check to St. Jude's Children's Hospital in the amount of $1,500. All right, thank you.
Thank you, great job. A lot of hard work went into it, and it was a great event. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, presentation from DDA for an informational presentation. Mr. John Prosh from DDA.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Your paperwork does say that the presentation is to be done by Kimberly Dold, but I am not her. I am the chairman of I'm the current presiding chairman of the Downtown Development Authority. I'm also a resident here for the last 16, 17 years, and also a business owner in town. We have a slideshow presentation for you, so if you can direct your attention to the monitors, I'll be walking through that with everyone. Basically, my job here today is to inform City Council and the residents about what the DDA is, and it's part of our Public Act requirements to do so. Some people may know about the DDA, but you might learn something new today, and some people might not know anything, so they might learn a lot of new things today. One thing you might not know is that the DDA wasn't always here. It started in 1983, and it was approved by City Council, and it was created to enhance the quality of the downtown district for the Garden City residents and transient people that are coming through our town. But what is the purpose of the DDA? It's to promote the economic and visual revitalization of the downtown business district. And we coordinate and support activities in the district that promote the economic viability of our downtown, which in turn works out for the entire city. A big question that always comes up is, how is the DDA funded? And to answer that, it's very simple. It's called tax increment financing, also known as TIF funding. And it's a mechanism that is used to redistribute taxes collected from the local community. Don't be mistaken, this is not an increase in taxes, and it's not a dedicated millage for the city. Basically, you have a base level of property tax that was established in the year of the inception of the DDA back in the 80s. And over time, the property values go up. And the difference between the base and the increase is where the capture comes from. The amount of the increased property tax value is invested by the DDA within the district to promote all this economic revitalization. So if you look at your screen, it talks about the current SEV of the district at a little over 25 million, almost 26 million. If you take 1983 state equalized value away at a little over 12.5 million, the captured amount is a little bit over 13 million. So if you do some computing on the next part, you'll find that the 2019 DDA TIF capture is almost $400,000. If you notice on there, it says almost 179,000 of that amount is from Garden City itself. But you also need to know that there's about 200,000 that comes from other sources. And the next slide talks about that. Wayne County is a big contributor. The Schoolcraft Community College is also a contributor. Wayne County's jail, transit authority, the parks, and the Huron-Clinton Metro Authority all contribute to that number. So it's not just businesses within the city of Garden City. A big question always comes up is, what are the boundaries of the DDA? So we talk about the Downtown Development Authority. Where's our downtown? How do we even know we had a downtown? Well, this map shows it. It's Middle Belt and Ford Road primarily, and it goes from Maplewood to Bach on the north-south, and it goes from Henry Ruff to Harrison on the east-west. And specifically, it captures all the businesses in those four quadrants, basically. These are built upon the principle that strengthening that core area benefits the entire community. So it helps with the property values, and it helps to extend into the community by having a home base, so to speak. We've been asked in the past if the DDA can expand its boundaries. Yes, it can. The ones that were set were made back in 1983. It can happen through your approval and the county's approval. It's probably a minimum of a 2 to 3 year process. And that also creates a second TIF because you're going off a different SEV at a different time and then going up from there. How does this benefit Garden City? Well, during the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, the DDA's paid over $225,000 in city accounting and insurance services. We've done a whole lot of maintenance, including streetscape repairs, improvements to the area, and we also pay for water and electric services that are within that zone. There's another $170,000 that we have in reserve for special projects that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes that have to do with loaning out facade money to improve buildings in the downtown area. We'll do over $24,000 in charities that directly are charities involved in this city through programs or events that we have. Specifically, most people know about the chili cook-off. That brings a whole lot of people into the area, and it builds revenue that goes back into a charity program within the city. The DDA itself, we're the title sponsor for the Santaland Parade and have been for 10 years. We give a substantial amount of money to that because we think it's very important to have that parade, and it's a pretty awesome parade, and sometimes it's in the snow. Yeah, right. The DDA is responsible for the hanging baskets that you see up and down Ford and Middlebelt roads. We're also responsible for the Commons Corner, if you know where the flagpole sits. And in the holiday season, the Christmas tree, we're responsible for that. All those festive tree lighting that happens up and down Ford and Middlebelt in the district is also done by the DDA. And then we've also done some other things that I'm going to mention. Streetscape, the streetscape and the brick pavers that are on the street corners and the sidewalks that are in the walking areas. The dumpster enclosures that have been recently closed in a couple of the quadrants behind the businesses to clean up the visual appeal of the area and for safety. I mentioned the holiday tree and the decorations that go with it up and down the roads that are on the light poles and things of that nature. We helped finance some renovations in the fire station for the fire department, and we also did some in the police station in their workout area. We've done an LED upgrade, which was pretty fantastic, so all the lighting in the area got upgraded. And then we've installed decorative light poles in the gateway itself, and those are the ones that hold the signs and the informational things like that. Some projects that we're currently working on to help promote the downtown. We're looking at a feasibility study to do on possibly some type of downtown pavilion over in that chili cook-off area that gets used to the side, like the farmer's market area, that space right there, possibly upgrading that with a pavilion of some sort to enhance its appeal and its attraction for events. We're talking about possible property acquisition in certain situations, some blight or rundown properties that we can acquire to then turn around and put profitable and viable businesses into those properties. A market analysis we haven't done in quite a few years, and it's probably good that we do another one. It's coming time to do that. And then we're looking at extending the gateway or doing more improvements in the gateway to push those out a little bit farther to make the downtown area a little bit of a bigger feel. On the maintenance side, we got some brick pavers to repair and or replace. You know, the winters around here beat those up pretty good, and we don't want any tripping and walking hazards for residents. Screen wall repair and cleaning. Those screen walls, what I'm talking about is those partial brick walls that are in front of the businesses in certain areas downtown. And then, you know, all those trees that are up and down Ford and Middlebelt, they need trimmed. You ever try to pull out of certain parking lots and you can't see because of the tree branches? We send a team in there to clean those up and make it safe so you can pull out. Promotional events. Basically said, we're trying to put feet on the street, right? So we're trying to have events where residents and non-residents all come and enjoy what we have to offer here. So over the past few years, we've increased the number of attendance at things such as our Halloween trunk or treat, right? The chili cook-off and the car show and the hot rod show has been a fan favorite. The Lucky Squirrel events, basically it's like another name for like a flea market or a trade show where residents and businesses also both can come in and show off what they have to offer, buy and sell, trade things. All these things promote people coming to our downtown in our area, and that's what we want, right? We want people to come and enjoy all the things that we have to offer. There's some pictures on the next slide that show off the chili cook-off and some of the great events. I'm sure a lot of you have been to those. They're pretty fantastic. The holiday tree lighting event that we do right after the Santa Land Parade, that basically kicks off the season, has all the lights going, and the Christmas tree. We support Small Business Saturday. That's a specific day where we try to promote people to shop and buy within your town. If you keep shopping and buying outside of your town, well, your businesses don't survive, right? So we're trying to get people to want to buy locally, shop locally, and put money back into our community. Dan was up here about the Great Bacon Run. We started that program, and then we handed it off to Dan, and he's running with it. Ha ha. Good job, Dan. It's been building all these years, right? So we're thankful for that. And then I mentioned the trunk or treat as well. The DDA has granted over $1 million to downtown businesses through our low-interest loans, our facade loans, and certain grant programs. So basically, to sum it up, a facade is like taking the face of a building and redeveloping it, making it new again, right? So it's not a full restructure of the building, but it gives the appeal and the frontage, maybe on Ford Road, maybe on Middle Belt. So it's appealing for businesses and also their customers, right? So we offer low-interest loans that these business owners pay back to the DDA, and then they can get these facades redone on their building to show some improvement. In the next couple of slides, we'll show you some pictures of things that have happened. We also offer parking lot improvement loans. So if you have a parking lot that's detrimental to car tires and people walking, we do parking lot improvement loans as well. And then we've been doing a grant program recently where we can help businesses to afford signage. It goes all through the ordinances of the city and the building department to make sure it's proper signage. And then we offer a grant program so they can maybe update or get new signage for their building to attract customers. And then we do also in the grant program is architectural assistance. So we have a couple of certified or approved architects that will design up your new facade for your building. And then you can go along with the project. To talk about some of the businesses specifically in Garden City that's happening, people may have heard that LA Fitness is in fact coming to the Kmart building. So that is in the works. It's not completed yet, but it's on its way. The McDonald's building is to be torn down in its entirety and then flip 90 degrees and rebuild on that corner where the old Firebird gas station was. And that's in the works as well. It's taking a long time because there's a lot of pieces that go into making that happen. There's a lot of entities and teams that have to approve all that. You may have seen the Papa Elias building, the former Papa Elias building on Ford in Middle Belt there, getting basically reconstructed. The old Harley shop was a waterbed place at one time, but basically there's going to be 3 or 4 new spaces that tenants can rent in that space. So the new owner of that building is trying to make it, attractive to businesses that want to come in there. You've probably seen some action over at Maplewood Lumber at the corner of Maplewood and Middle Belt. That owner is refurbishing a lot of that building, and he's got a plan for a new tenant to move in and have a new business working out of there. So we're excited about that because that building has been on the wayside for quite some time. So he's doing a full facade, he's redoing the parking lot, he's putting a new roof on, and really putting some money back into that space. The Moose Building, the former Moose Building, is getting refurbished right now. And if you've been driving down Ford Road, you've seen the Sheridan Square Building that's getting new facade on the top and make it more appealing. And then we got a couple of new leases that are going into what we call the Weinstein buildings. If you're not sure where that is, it's on the northwest corner of Ford and Middle Belt. There's like 6 spaces that are to the west of the old Andrews Drugs. So we have 2 new leases going in there with 2 more that are possibly in the chute for coming up really soon. And we have 3 property owners that are looking at our facade improvement loan. So that's all positive things that the DDA has been working on. The next slide shows some of the facades we've done in the past. And Hershey Shoes is on there, Bolin Florist, and some of those things. Just so everybody knows, the trustees are all appointed by the mayor, and they're approved by council, and we're all volunteers. We don't get paid for our position. We're strictly volunteer and do it for service to the city. So there's parameters around that. So a certain number of us have to be business owners or property owners within the district. And then there's a couple people that are just what we call at large, and they're residents only. So we get some input from the business side, but we also get it from just strictly a residential side. Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to be a part of as a resident? What would you like to see happen in this area, and how to facilitate that? and then work for that. And then the trustees have, we've appointed, we hired a CEO or an executive director, and we have an administrative assistant. So you guys know that Kim Dold is our director, and she has an assistant. Her name is Teresa, does a fantastic job for us. The DDA's broke down into different committees, so we have our executive director, and we have our trustees, and then we have a promotions committee. That they basically work on special events, business promotions, marketing. We have a maintenance committee that has everything to do with the grass cutting, anything that needs repaired, things of that nature. We have a design committee that works on, if we're going to work on, like facade improvements, verifying and approving the designs and things of that nature. And these are committees that the general public can get involved in. So if you have some time on your hands and you like to be a part of things that are going on in your city, we would love to have you put in an application to get involved. And you can sit on the one of our committees to participate and give your input. And it's a great way to be a part of it. Our DDA meetings are hosted on the third Tuesday of every month, and the odd months, they're at 8:30 in the morning, and then even months, they're at 5 p.m. So we have a late time and or early time and a late time to try to accommodate everybody. And those meetings is where we talk about all the grit and all the things that are happening, and make decisions and vote on things and come up with new ideas and brainstorm. And those are also open to the public. So maybe you want to stop into one, you can come every month. Any of those things are available to any resident. And like I said, they just have to put in a application. And then we'll have our assistant or our director give them a call and talk to them and see where they can best fit and best help our DDA. The information on the last screen talks about the phone number, our website, and then also an email for our executive director. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, any of those things, we're welcome to hear them and to put them into, policy where we can talk about them and see if we can come to a situation where we can help people out. So that's the nutshell of the DDA. So we thank you for your time. And as I said, if you have any questions, get a hold of us. And if you have any questions, let us know. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Does anybody, thank you, Mr. Procius.
You're
Very
welcome.
good.
One quick question, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Earl.
I appreciate the presentation, and I love hearing about the businesses coming in and the Lucky Squirrel and all that. I mean, this, all those things are kind of like a staple in Garden City. But a quick question about the secondary funding, the Wayne County Jail. I don't know if Kim or maybe Commissioner Anderson knows, how does that money come about to be sent here? Do we know where it's generated? I'm guessing you probably don't know off the top of your head.
I can answer. if you're-
Okay.
The extra funding actually is because our portion is not sent to the jail. So the money is captured locally, and then we retain it. All the other taxes that are collected in the city, we disperse to the jails, Schoolcraft, all of that. But that portion in the TIF district is captured and kept locally.
Okay.
That's how it's done.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Good job.
Anybody else?
That was very informative, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, you're
Procius.
welcome.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay. Okay, next we'll move on to item 7, comments from state and county officials. I see County Commissioner Glenn Anderson. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you folks, and I'll try to keep it brief. You've had a long meeting, it looks like. I did want to give a little bit of an update. Agenda, tomorrow, most of the committees meet on Tuesday, Wednesday downtown, and tomorrow, we call it the COPS Committee. It has nothing to do really with police, but it's the Committee on Public Services. They meet tomorrow, and the reason I mention it is up for approval by the committee tomorrow are improvements at Helen Park that come out of the parks money that's collected that I've decided to make sure it's directed back to the communities. What comes out of the communities goes back into the community. And I know in years past, some of the other commissioners, not my immediate predecessor, but others, would direct the entire budget to one city and then rotate that around. But I chose to do what my immediate predecessor did and make sure the money that was collected from the community goes back every year into that community. So there will be a $16,595 up for approval tomorrow. As I said, for an investment into Helen Park for improvements. And I believe it's going to be some play equipment, Dan. Is that? Sidewalk, okay. So improvements, and I've chosen to leave that to the community to decide what that's going to be. The committee will also have a presentation of the very first, which is amazing to me that it's the first, the 10-year, it's the first 10-year strategic plan the county has ever had. And that's looking at the assets. We hired a company to work with the DPS department and the administration to tell them what the status of our fixtures, our roads, our bridges, infrastructure, total infrastructure picture of the county, where it's at, what it should be like as far as the condition, what needs doing, and then put together a plan for the next 10 years of what direction we need to be going. It's something that when I first got to the county, I was just totally stunned, and I was asking for even a 5-year plan, and it seemed to be something that no one felt like there was any need to do, but I was glad to see they finally embraced it. And not only they did a 5-year, but they're going out even to 10 years. So we'll see how that works. So tomorrow they're going to have a presentation of that plan. Tomorrow it's finally ready for some examination. Like I said, I was just stunned that the county that spends, this next budget is going to be $1.6 billion with a B. And the fact that they didn't know from year to year where they were going as far as the needs and what was going to be done with those tax dollars. So it'll be something that I feel, we'll see how it's going to work. But being the Wayne County, I know I'm going to keep my eye on how they do it, that they stick by it, what their needs really are. That's how decisions should be made on our roads, our bridges. It should be the greatest need, the greatest benefit, not any political consideration. And tomorrow, or actually last week, the commission approved a program that will require warranties on all of our construction projects exceeding $2 million. They've never had that in place. Now, that came as a result of the legislature passing legislation to require county entities to do that. And I'm glad that if it took the legislature to do it, I'm glad that it's happening because we need warranties on the work that where we're spending tax dollars to do roads and bridges especially. And that'll take effect, I believe, next year. We also, in the current year, or the new year budget, 2019-2020 budget, will be creating, the administration suggested it. I was a little skeptical at the beginning because we do have shortages, as Councilman Earl would tell you, in our sheriff's department as far as not having the department fully staffed. So they're going to create a warrant task force to go out and arrest people that are on warrants. For violent crimes, that's going to be the focus. And it'll help every community within Wayne County because when they're in hiding, the bad guys are in hiding, they can live anywhere. They'll be hiding. They're not all going to stay in the city. They're going to scatter around and move around and try to avoid arrest. But my understanding is we had a very large backlog of warrants that had never been served. And people had not been picked up and arrested and forced to go to court. So that's something they're going to be working on. I think it'll be beneficial, but I'm going to take a look. I think the whole commission is going to look at it closely next year to see what effect it's had. But I think the whole intent is making the whole county safer for the citizens of Wayne County by getting the bad guys off the streets. But anyway, that's all I have tonight.
Anybody have any questions?
Just one thing.
Yes?
I know just in my section alone, that I'm working, there's 26,000 outstanding warrants in just my area.
26,000.
And that's not,
And that's not the entire,
that's not the entire, that's just my area. So, you know, hopefully that's supported because it's needed. We haven't done it in about 10 years, so,
I am, when the county gets into spending money, I am always
yeah.
wanting to see, are we getting results?
Right.
And so we'll see what it looks like next year, but it should have a huge impact.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner. I don't see any other officials. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, come on up. Betty, from Senator Betty Jean Alexander's office.
Okay, good afternoon, well, good evening, City Council and Mayor. We are back in session at this time. The only update that I do have is that Governor Whitmer, has agreed to separate the road funding from the general fund. That will put aside negotiations on how to raise the $2.5 billion annually in revenue for the state roads and infrastructures. If you have any issues or have any questions or concerns, you can give her office a contact at 517-373-0994.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. 517-373-0994. Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 8, community events. I'm going to call up Monica Fulton, our Community Resources Director.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple of things today from the Senior Center. First up, later this month on Friday, September 27th, from 11 to 2, we are hosting a Women's Health and Wellness Expo. It is free, and there'll be lots of vendors and sponsors on hand. They'll be providing free manicures, mini hand massages, chair massages, as well as diabetes testing. There'll be lots of raffles and free gifts, and there'll be some refreshments as well. So I encourage everyone to come out for that. Again, that's Friday, September 27th, from 11 a.m. to 2 at the Maplewood Center. And right now, tickets are on sale for the Fall Colors Riverboat lunch cruise on the Michigan Princess, which is out of Lansing. Tickets are $44, includes a motor coach bus ride down, the boat cruise, a buffet lunch, and entertainment by the Dixieland Jazz Band. This was really popular last year, sold out very quickly. I want to thank the volunteer committee who runs a thrift store. They are paying for the cost of the motor coaches, so that ticket price is only the cost of the cruise and lunch. It includes free transportation, so many thanks to them. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Item 9, petitions and communications, we have none. Item 10 is public hearings. I'm going to make an announcement. At this time, we will invite members of the public to the microphone to make a comment about the issues relating to the public hearing. Everyone should have filled out a comment card and make sure they give it to the city clerk. You have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Only state the facts of the situation. No comments may include defaming or slanderous personal attacks on any member of the city council, staff, or other citizens. Please introduce yourself, your street name, and the city in which you reside before making your comment. Councilmember Earl, your timekeeper, please let the speaker know when they have 15 seconds left so they're not caught off guard. This is your only time to make a comment, not to receive a response back from members of the city council or staff. And this will be your only chance to speak on these issues before the council will make a decision at when they decide to have that vote. So, first public hearing. I'm opening up the public hearing for anyone to speak on Amendment A, which is for Section 154.022, accessory buildings and structures. This is an amendment to allow for an increase in the maximum allowed square footage of accessory structures. Does anybody wish to make a comment on that? I'll ask again, anybody with a comment for that? Okay, I will close that public hearing for Amendment A. Amendment B, the next public hearing is for Section 154.037, fences. This is an amendment to allow for a 6-foot-tall privacy fence in side yards, either 2 feet beyond an existing side door or no closer than 10 feet from the front line of the house. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this?
My
State your
name's
name,
John
please.
Murray, 5942 Lather Street, Garden City, Michigan. On this fencing situation, we have many areas to where people have gone and are not compliant to the existing ordinance. So by changing this, what are you gonna do about correcting the people that improperly installed the fencing prior to this approval? Because what we're seeing in this town is it appears people are going about doing the job, and if they get busted, they ask for forgiveness. I think that's not the intent of our town, and I'm just wondering if we go and we allow certain things to happen, then that means people have gotten away with not following the rules. And myself, I do question a 6-foot fence on the road areas, because as you walk by, let's say down Dawson from Harrison to Inkster, I mean, you got yourself about the sidewalk and then a boulevard of a couple inches. You put that barricade fence in there, it just makes it a little more complicated, and especially during the winter time when we have snow removal. So I'm not sure what we should do on it. It's just a question that I think we need to look at before we allow the 6-foot fence along your thoroughfares.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? One more time, any other comments on the fencing? Okay, I will close that meeting, or public hearing for Amendment B. Amendment C, the next public hearing is for Section 154.606, signs permitted with a permit. This is an amendment to allow businesses to place a portable sign in front of their business with restrictions any day the business is open. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this one? Once again, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mike Farron. I own a business on Ford Road, and I'm a resident living on Barton Street in Garden City. I would like to say that I attended the Planning Commission public hearing on this. This came up at that. And as a business owner, I am all for this. And I would just like you to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, no more comments. I will close Amendment C. Amendment D, the next public hearing is for Section 154.352, permitted uses and structures. This is an amendment to change who determines if a use is similar to permitted uses in the Central Business District, from the Planning Commission to the Zoning Administrator. Anybody wishing to make a comment on this?
Based on my understanding with the DDA and the Central Business District, we've sort of created a game plan. Are we now finding a way to let Albert's on the Alley, since it seems to be the hotbed right now, where that used to be a bar restaurant, a bowling alley, and now we're discussing about making it a banquet facility? Is that the kind of changes you're having or suggesting? And I believe that, in my own assessment, that the change of that criteria should be exclusively held within the organizations that oversee it, meaning the Central Business Area, DDA. I don't believe that we, as citizens or the council, has a right to change anything there, because these people have been appointed. They have put major effort into this, and to just all of a sudden change it because it's the flavor of the month, I think that defeats some of the efforts people have put in. So I'd like to see that just completely eliminated and you leave the autonomy of these two committees on directing the usage of the buildings based on the historical practices we've had.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Farren?
Thank you. I would like to call the attention of the council and the residents of the city to the Planning Commission public hearing that was held a couple of weeks ago. At that meeting, not one resident in attendance was in favor of the changes that the council was asking the Planning Commission to make a recommendation on. The commission itself, by a very large majority, recommended that these changes not be implemented. These ordinance changes, this one and the two following it, are for the benefit of one business that wishes to open here but does not meet current ordinance requirements. These changes have absolutely nothing to do with improving the life of Garden City residents. One has to wonder why it is so important to make these changes at this time. Were assurances given or promises made to the potential business owners, possibly? I recommend not changing any of these ordinances. They were working fine. They've continued to work fine. I see no reason to tie ourselves in knots trying to accommodate this business that does not meet the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Stacy Karafotis on Dawson. I'm also a business owner. In my opinion, I think this is a mistake to change this ordinance. I think the council changing this would be a mistake because you're taking away the power of the Planning Commission. They were appointed by our mayor. The Planning Commission has more experience than every person in this room when it comes to making decisions regarding our downtown, our ordinances, and how things work. Those people live here, and I think the mistake is taking the power from 6, 7, 8, 9 people and giving it in the hands of 1 or 2 people. Important decisions about our downtown are some of the most important decisions to be made for the city. And letting that up to 2 people, and no offense to those 2 or 3 people that don't even live in our city, it just doesn't make sense. So that's something to consider. The people on the Planning Commission are volunteers. They do everything on their own time. And they put their heart and soul into making these decisions and making good ones and the right ones for our downtown. And I don't think leaving it up to 2 people is a smart thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dole.
Jeff Dole, Arcola Street. Not only am I a resident of 50 years, but I'm also the vice chair of the Planning Commission. I have volunteered my time with the Planning Commission for close to 10 years. The Planning Commission consists of 9 residents with a wide variety of knowledge and decades of experience in this field. That's one reason why each one of us was appointed by the mayor and approved by council. The DDA has 11 trustees on board. Several of them own some businesses in Garden City, most successful. The DDA trustees are also appointed by the mayor and approved by council. For the Central Business District, the Planning Commission listens to recommendations from the DDA, then votes on the most appropriate outcome according to the current ordinances. We voted to deny the recommendations of all 3 zoning ordinance changes in the CBD. I'd have to question why the city has a planning commission. Our decisions are not what the city manager wanted or possibly promised a new owner in the city, so now our vote doesn't count. Our years of experience and knowledge don't count. Our recommendations from the DDA don't count. All of the CBD or zoning changes that we are speaking about tonight are for one property owner with no thought how this will affect the entire district or our residents. The property owner who did not conduct any due diligence prior to purchase the property to find out if he could open this business in this district, the property owner who has had several closed meetings with the city, one that was issued permits prior to the site plan approval, then he was issued additional permits after being denied by the Planning Commission. I think it's disgusting and shameful the complete disregard this council has as well as the city manager has shown for these commissioners. The city council is elected to serve the citizens of the city and do the best interests for the city. Part of that responsibility is listen to the people who are appointed to advise them. There's a reason we exist. The Planning Commission currently has final say of the zoning issues in the CBD. Now, because certain people don't like that we followed our current ordinances, you have to amend and reassign that to yourselves. That's disgusting. I'm not going to read the rest of my statement because it's probably not allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Hunt, no clapping, please.
Just wanted to give you a handout, some information that was given to me. And I know there's no questions here, but being on the Planning Commission, you've got quite a few people there deciding on these issues. The way this is headed right now, it's going to go to one person only. We've already had, by the looks of things, looking through this paperwork that was given to me, that's where this started at. Permits were issued. August of last year, demolition permits issued. Nothing come before anybody. Plumbing permit, electrical permits issued before it came before the Planning Commission. Everybody up there at the council has had a problem with us on the Planning Commission in decisions we've made. Take a look at these decisions. These are the ones that are costing you what the problems are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Mr. Boland.
Bruce Boland, property owner in Garden City, a business property in the Central Business District, a business owner, same location within the city since 1957. I'm second generation owner, property owner and business owner. And I am also a member of it on the trustees of the Garden City Downtown Development Authority. Thinking about this situation, I agree with the gentleman that was just up here and the other people that were voicing their opinion about the responsibility of the Planning Commission. I put my whole faith in these people. These people have had their time and commitment over the years. I was just talking to one planning commissioner that's had over 20 years of, given service to this community. And these are people that are trusted, in my judgment, with all the information that they need to know to keep this community in a healthy state and a kind of a means to propel us into a better community. So I'm very disappointed in what we're considering in terms of having an administrator to make these decisions. I always believe after being as a trustee for 18 years with the DDA, these items come before the board. It's generally discussed to length and everybody makes their own individual kind of statement and also decision, and it's voted on, and the majority, of course, rules. I believe in this kind of a means to keep things in a way that we can all anticipate having the best outcome. And it's very important that we keep in this direction. So I'm against this actually plan to leave it up to an administrator instead of the Planning Commission themselves. Again, these are people that were appointed and given the responsibility by you, the council members. And I believe in that system works. It's just a matter of following it through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Richard.
Tony Richard, Bridge Street, Garden City. First, I'd like to say I hold all of our elected officials and especially our appointed people in the highest regards. To take it away from those appointed, it would be a giant slap in the face. We have those people in place for a reason, both planning and zoning. To say one person or two people are going to have the say on that, what does that say moving forward, and also for any decisions made in the past? To speak on the opposite side of that, I think we need to train those people to be upfront and completely transparent with everybody. I sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've seen people come and go, zero training. You could be working at Kmart today, tomorrow Mr. Walker appoints you, you have no training. You have an idea what's right and wrong, but you don't. And by doing that, it's going to cause a massive headache and a ton of litigation. And we just finished a lawsuit 2 years ago, maybe 3 years. We're just coming off of a lawsuit that took us many, many years to pay on. I see us heading down the road where we're going to get ourselves in trouble because maybe something was misinterpreted when it went to vote first time, then it goes to a second vote. People are changing their minds. Why'd they change their minds? We need to train the people that are on our boards, both myself and our board, Planning Commission. That's something council needs to look at before we get ourselves into a ton of trouble. This is going to be a headache. I see it coming. That's it on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to comment on this amendment? Last chance. Anyone else? Okay, I will close Amendment D, public hearing. Public hearing on Amendment E. This public hearing is for Section 154.352, permitted uses and structures, retail and office uses. This amendment is to include banquet facilities as a permitted use within the Central Business District. Anybody wishing to make a comment?
John Murray, when this stuff comes to vote, can we be provided with some sort of like a worksheet or a cover sheet to where you would have like the 5 Ws, what, when, where, why, and who? And then you would have 5 negative, 5 positive philosophies, and then a synopsis of pros and cons, so we can look at that, so we can provide you with our feelings of this issue. I think that what's happening right now is there's a lot of things going on, but I personally don't know where to go look to get fine, detailed information so I could voice my opinion. So can the council somehow implement a cover sheet to all issues prior to vote and make it somehow available for everybody? And then we know how you guys, why you guys are reacting what way. Because I know that there's probably a pile of this thick of paperwork, but you give us a generalization, we'll know exactly what's going on and how you guys come about making your decision, and then we can go forth on that part. So it would be, I guess, a management change with Mr. Doherty and Mr. Miller of providing us more transparency to what's going on.
Thank you. Anybody else? Rock, paper, scissors?
Okay, Stacy Carefotis again. Everybody in this room knows that the public hearing and all these ordinance changes are for one thing and for one person. It's for the banquet hall at Albert's. And I ask why. Why has this been pushed through from the very beginning? Why is this one businessman so much more important than the rest of the business people in this city? As a business owner, I'm beginning to feel a little bit discriminated against. I just think that it's highly unlikely that everyone applying for a business in Garden City would get this much help from our city administration. It doesn't happen. I am full proof of that from today. No one in this room is against banquet halls. We're against banquet halls in the Central Business District, and there's a reason that our master plan says they shouldn't be there. I think it's time that we follow our ordinances, we follow our master plan. We've all been asking for months, why this guy and why this business? And yet that question has not been answered by anyone.
Thank you. Mr. Richard.
Again, Tony Richard, Bridge Street, Garden City. To me, banquet center, does it create revenue? Does it bring people into the city? Why would we not have it there? There's been a bookstore for years and years and years, sold pornography 2 doors down. That was completely fine downtown, but we can't have 40 people gather for a wedding to eat. To me, it sounds kind of silly. And we have to look at the business coming in, the revenue that it's going to create, and not the person behind the business. In my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, a lot is done in this city with business owners. Who that owner is, what that owner is, not what kind of business they own. I've seen it firsthand, and it's completely grotesque, and we need to open our eyes to that. I'm not going to go any further and start slinging a ton of mud, but it's grotesque, and I've seen it firsthand. We really need to take a look at creating good business, not who we're doing business with, business in general, and put the blinders on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Belinda Price. I've been a Garden City resident for 50 years. A banquet hall in our downtown development area does not generate revenue for the city. It generates revenue for the caterer. I'm doing this now. I'm paying a caterer in another city money for a wedding that people are going to drive to, park their car, go in, eat the caterer's food, drink their booze, go home. They're not going to shop in the area. Who's going to shop at midnight? And they're not going to shop on their way into the wedding. It's going to generate no revenue for the city or for the downtown business area. It's going to generate revenue for a caterer, a disc jockey, and a decorating company. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Diane Kalidas, 30215 Rush. I am also a resident and a member on the Planning Commission. I have done some research, and I've looked at some of our sister cities' ordinances, and not one can I find a banquet center in the central business district area. It's been in a C2. So if you can find one that's in a CBD area, please bring it to our Planning Commission on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last chance. Anybody else on this amendment? Yes. Mr. Jones.
Michael Jones, Donnelly Street, Garden City. All I ask is that you let the people who you've appointed and studied the issues make decisions and respect those decisions and not try to take it out of their hands. They've got the experience. They've studied this. We should respect what they conclusions they've come to.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last chance. Anybody else on Amendment E? See none? Okay, we'll close that amendment, that public hearing. Amendment F. This public hearing is for Section 154.354, Site Design Regulations, off-street parking and loading. This is an amendment to remove the requirement that collective off-street parking facilities must be located on the same side of Ford Road or Middlebelt Road. Anybody wishing to speak on this one?
Of all three of these amendments, this is the one that is just the most insane, in my humble opinion. To think that people are going to park across Middlebelt or across Ford Road and walk to a business is just nuts. And if I was Tony, the owner of Garden City Cafe, or if I was the owner of the Chinese restaurant next to Tony, I'd be out there with a shotgun making sure they didn't park in my lot, because you know that's going to happen if you allow this. This is just stupid. I don't care who wants to come into town. I don't care what nationality, what religion, or anything else. But if you don't have the parking for your business that you want to operate, you just shouldn't be able to open that business at that location. Simple as that. I welcome everybody, but we have parking ordinances, and they make sense, and we need to follow them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dope.
Jeff Dole on Arcola Street. The city would also like you to believe that allowing customers to park on the opposite side of both Ford Road and Middlebelt with the city's permission is no big deal. I gotta block this part out. In 2018, the area had 50 reported crashes. 19 people were injured. We've had people die crossing these roads. This is a huge issue for safety, not to mention a huge liability for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Common sense would say that you don't have people crossing a major 5-lane road where the speed limit's 45 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour. The banquet hall on Warren opened up earlier this summer, and the very first night it was open, someone got hit crossing Warren Road. That doesn't have half as much traffic as Ford and Middlebelt. Just a couple weeks ago, if everybody remembers, at Ford and Brant, in the middle of the day, crossing at the light, a 13-year-old was hit. That's in the middle of the day, crossing at the light. What do you think is going to happen when someone's crossing Middlebelt or Ford Road on a Friday night in the middle of summer or the middle of February when it's dark by, 6 o'clock? People are going to get hurt, and you guys have to think before you make this decision, because who's going to be responsible? You guys are so worried about being sued all the time. Someone says, oh, yeah, we're allowed to park over here, we can just cross. There's no crossing guard. If someone chooses to run across, are we not responsible just because they jaywalked? So that's something important that we need to think about. And it's just not adults. There's kids that are going to be going to a new restaurant at the Moose. They're going to say, oh, I can park over here behind Tony's, and I'll just dart right across Middlebelt. If anybody has any ideas that this would work, I ask you to go out on Middlebelt Road at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and try to cross it in traffic. It's not going to happen. You can't do it without getting hurt. So please, be smart about this ordinance. It matters. It really does.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Mr. Mulder.
Evidently, might be the only one that's confused on this, but if I wanted to go to Albertson Alley and park on the other side of Middlebelt in a public parking lot, there ain't a thing you can do about it. It's not against the law for me to park and go to the crosswalk and come across. And either I'm confused about the ordinance you're talking about or something. Because you can't tell me that I can't park in a public parking lot in Garden City and go across the street to a business. It's a public parking lot. Anyway, even if you did tell me that, how are you going to regulate it? And as far as crossing Middlebelt, I agree, you're crazy if you do it, but you know what I said. You can't stop me.
Thank you.
I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but I was over in Westland where there's a Petco there. And what I noticed Westland did in that parking lot is they designated stuff with signs, and it looked like they tried to divide this massive parking lot for each business. I don't know if this is addressing what we're talking about right now, but I believe that there'd have to be some sort of coordinated effort with all the businesses on earmarking what belongs as the parking for their facility and for the other. It may mean putting different colors for different buildings or something like that. But let's get something straight. This is the Motor City. I remember going down to Tiger Stadium for football games, and we'd park on the north side of the stadium, basically in the street. The kids would tell you if you didn't want a flat tire, you better give us $2. We did it. And there's always been a war over parking. So I don't know why this has become such an issue, and I'd like someone to try to explain it to me.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anyone else on Amendment F? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close Amendment F, public hearing. Go to Amendment G. This public hearing is for Section 154.354, B, Site Design Regulations, Off-street parking and loading. This is an amendment to, instead of allow for parking spots to be counted across Ford Road or Middlebelt Road, shared parking on the same block as the business resides would be allowed. I will open the hearing. Anybody wishing to comment on this one? No. This amendment is on the same block parking. So this would eliminate the Middlebelt and Ford Road. Mr. Farren.
Yes, in theory, I don't have a problem with shared parking if a business says, yes, I'm not going to be open at this time that you're open, and if you'd like to use my lot, that's fine during those hours. There's a fee for it, or whatever they work out. In theory, I'm all for that. But what usually happens is that that business owner's customers overwhelm that other business's parking, and oftentimes at hours when they are open, and the agreement is not going to be enforced by city council. It's not going to be enforced by our fabulous police department because they have other priorities. Let's not kid ourselves, folks. They're not going to enforce this. So I am very concerned that even though it sounds like a potentially harmless idea, it usually just doesn't work out that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Hunt.
Kevin Hunt, Bridge, Garden City. This one actually makes sense. This one doesn't endanger a bunch of people's lives. A lot of people don't understand what's going on with it. The last one was, well, the city will give up their city parking across the street. We'll let this banquet hall run back and forth with a bunch of attendants grabbing cars, bringing them back and forth for them in the dark, in the snow, in the rain, everything else. At least this keeps them on the same side of the road. If they can come up with the parking there, that's the biggest problem we have in this city. Every city has it. Birmingham right now is working on a great big new structure out there, trying to figure out what they're going to do because they don't have any parking. We don't have the parking we need for this size of a facility here right now. If they want to limit it back and they can stay on the same side of the road, this one makes sense and is going to keep us out of trouble. If you let that business say, yes, we can use the city parking across the street. That's great. You do have the parking. No, nobody's going to ticket you for parking in public parking spot. The people are not going to park over there. That was all going to be a valet situation, and you're going to have kids running back and forth across trying to get tips. That's where the danger comes in. This one actually makes sense where it stays on the same side of the road. You don't have the jaywalking. You don't have the police up there picking, and the fire department up there picking bodies out of the middle of the road. So if they're going to go with one of them, this one I'd say yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Karafotis.
So I agree with Kevin, this is the one that makes the most sense. But I would say, when this went in front of the planning commission and they talked about it, they asked Mario to bring some statistics to the board and say, okay, we're going to share this, but how many of these businesses, like in front of Kmart, are actually going to be in use? And you just heard John Prosh say, those other stores have been rented. So it's a matter of, okay, yeah, let's all share this, that's fine. But you still have to make sure that the next business that comes in, like a banquet hall, if he needs 200 parking spaces and now all those stores are rented, is there going to be enough for everybody? So it has to be done with a little research and it has to be figured out. I'm not saying color-coded or whatever. I know what he's talking about at Petco, but it has to be figured out first. You can't just say, hey, you can park there, you can park there, you can park there, and you can park there. There has to be enough room for everybody. It can't just be willy-nilly. Oh, he's coming in, he can have these spots. It just has to be a little bit more research. It can't just be, oh yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm not talking about valet parking. Valet parking is a simple ordinance. It has to be on-site parking on your property. That takes care of that. But the public parking, you cannot regulate who parks in the public parking. It's a free parking for everybody, and you cannot tell anybody you cannot park on that road and go across the street. But valet parking is a different issue altogether. You can make it's very simple. It's on-site parking. If they catch a valet parking it over there, you give him a $500 fine and it's over. He will never do it again. Neither will the business owner.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else speaking on this amendment, Amendment G? Okay, and having no more, we will close that public hearing. Next public hearing, 10B, is property conveyance through the 2019 Neighborhood Stabilization Program. This is to convey properties obtained by the city through the right of first refusal so that the properties can be rehabbed. And before I open up the hearing, Mr. Miller, would you like to explain it a little bit more?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a public hearing for the conveyance of the properties that we did acquire through the right of first refusal. The right of first refusal is the county's process to give the cities the opportunity to acquire the properties before they go to the open market auction. So the city did exercise the right to acquire these properties for their back taxes. One of the benefits of that program is that the city will be acquiring the properties before they go to the open market, and then we can make the assurances that the properties are rehabbed in a proper fashion and then put back on the tax rolls. And part of this conveyance is to get the properties that we have already and then convey them to a developer that will give us those assurances that the property is renovated and rehabbed and sold to a homeowner occupied person. And then, again, the way the program is established is that we're purchasing it for back taxes. We're selling it for the back taxes owed on the property, and we cannot make any money on the property. The way the county developed the program is to give the cities the opportunity to get the property and then get them into the hands of the developer that will be able to make those changes, improve the properties almost, 100%. I've seen this occur in many places in Wayne. We did a number of these houses, and the results are really very good. The properties are completely almost gutted down to the studs, rebuilt, and then sold to a homeowner for really the betterment of the entire block and neighborhood. And the properties that we're looking at, these four, are really in very poor condition. And I know that HP Snap Development can do the work and give us a good product. Representing HP Snap tonight is PD Danick, is seated here, and Jake Woods. They're part of he's the owner of the company. Jake is a project manager for these properties that will be working with every step of the way to make sure that they're following the ordinances of the city, they're pulling permits, and doing the work properly.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will open up this public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment on this?
We went through, John Murray, we went through this a couple years ago with the tax foreclosed properties. I wasn't really happy with what occurred because I thought we got into some litigation. My question is, what has happened with that litigation? Has that disappeared? Because I don't think the city should have been held liable, but the way people are so sue-happy, we got caught into a nightmare. I know that we need to do something to improve these properties. These corporations do make progress, but I just fear that we don't need to create any more adversary issues with people and put any more litigation on the city. So how do we protect ourselves in this environment? I think that's what we need to really look at before we leap into this.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to comment on this? Again, anybody wishing to comment on the Neighborhood Stabilization Program? Okay, having none, we will close that public hearing. Next public hearing, 10C, is to establish a stormwater management ordinance for illicit discharge elimination that has been mandated by the state of Michigan. The ordinance establishes methods for controlling the introduction of pollutants into the municipal storm sewer system. And Mr. Kern, would you like to say anything on this from Hennessy Engineering?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Basically, this is something that's been mandated by the state of Michigan for all communities as part of their MS4 permit, the Municipal Separate Stormwater System Permit, that all communities establish a stormwater ordinance. The ordinance that's been presented in front of you tonight was prepared by the Alliance of Rouge Communities. They did that for all the communities that they represent, which is roughly 20, I think more like 30-some communities within the Rouge River watershed. They put this ordinance together, and basically it just goes through in detail of basically what you can and cannot discharge into a storm sewer system, and goes through the what they call the IDEP program, the illicit discharge elimination program is basically what this entails.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I will open up public hearing 10C on the stormwater management. Any comments from the public? I'll ask again, any comments on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, we will close that public hearing. Okay, moving on to item 11, the consent agenda.
Mayor?
Councilmember Squires.
I move to approve the consent agenda, items A 1 through 4B.
Support by Councilmember Earl. Any comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, on to our action items. B1, which is
Pro Tem.
Councilmember McCarge.
I move to approve the attached ordinance to convey properties obtained as part of the 2018-19 Neighborhood Stabilization Program right of first refusal to HP Snap LLC, Redford, Michigan, in the amount of $20,603.94.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Squires. Discussion from the table. From the general public. Yes.
I just have a question. I know that the city has attempted to contact all the people living in the homes. Have you had any success?
We have not had any success. So there are 4 homes, 2 are occupied. One is occupied by a tenant, the other by the homeowner. The police department and ordinance department has had a lot of communication with one of the property owner, and we're working on an exit strategy. HP Snap also will kind of step in to give the assistance needed to help them, make that transition out of the home.
And just so people know that if the city, what would have happened if the city didn't take these houses like this?
Well, what would happen is that then the property would then be sold at an auction to anybody that would be the high bidder at that point in time. And then at that point, it would be anyone in the public that would get it, and then it would be they could do what they want with the property. Of course, they'd have to maintain, it'd have to be a single-family structure, because they're all zoned single-family, but there'd be no controls really as to what could occur. Any improvements, anything like that would not be a requirement.
Thank you.
I have a question also. Comment to that. I believe all the lawsuits, Garden City wasn't held liable for anything. That was all dismissed, I believe.
Yeah, well, at this point, we have no record of any lawsuits remaining. That was quite a time. That's still available on the internet to see what was happening. I believe up to 26 properties. The issue and complaint, Mr. Murray, was that the city took the properties from the homes. Actually, this process is Wayne County. After 3 years of refusing to pay taxes, Wayne County takes the properties and decides to put it out to whoever wants them. They have now created a program where they go to the cities and say, would you like these houses first before we just give them to whoever wants them, where the city is now moving forward to take those properties. So we won't be under any kind of lawsuit where we're stealing a house from anybody. We're just taking it from Wayne County before someone else does. And then we go through the process really just to be made whole financially. We don't make a profit off it, but we do get to clean up the neighborhood, as Mr. Miller mentioned earlier. So there's really no lawsuit against the city for these properties because it's already been taken by Wayne County.
Councilmember
I
McCarthy.
remember reading about homes that had, that private people had, bid on and got the homes, and then they sat and rotted for 10 years with no improvements, and this, so this is why this program is good for our city, because the homes, if they have to be, if the county has to have their money and the people have to leave, at least we have some control over the property being cleaned up and moved back onto the tax rolls.
Any other comment from the table? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes 5-0. B2, proposed stormwater management ordinance. Councilmember Squires.
I move to approve the stormwater management ordinance for illicit discharge elimination.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Kerwin. Comments from the table? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, B3, local pavement warranty program. And Mr. Kern, would you like to explain this one? Although I think Commissioner Anderson touched on it a little bit earlier.
Good evening again. Yeah, Commissioner Anderson brought that up. Wayne County's already passed this, but back in 2015, as part of the transportation funding package, they looked at establishing a warranty program. It's taken until now for the state to finally get all the documentation together and get it passed by all the communities that are getting Act 51 funding for their roads. Basically, this establishes a warranty program for projects that are receiving state and/or federal funding. It's for projects that are $2 million or more, and it's a 5-year warranty program. It's very rare that the city has a $2 million project that's getting state or federal funds here, but if that were to happen in the future, this warranty program would go into effect. As far as city projects that we have now, there is a 2-year warranty program on projects that we do in the city itself. And that can always change in the future. Obviously, the longer the warranty period, the more expensive the project's going to be, but that's something we can look at in the future for city projects as well. But by September 18th of this year, the state is asking that this get adopted and implemented by every community in the state.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Kerwin.
I motion to adopt the resolution for the local pavement warranty program.
Support.
Support by Councilmember McCarge. Further discussion by council. From the general public. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. B4, Mr. Kern, you might as well come back. This is the local pavement warranty program. Same, only it's local. Okay.
It's basically the same thing. The first one was to adopt the program. This one is just to implement the program. Not really sure why they had 2 separate resolutions. I think they could have done it as one, but they're asking for 2 separate resolutions.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Kerwin.
I motion to adopt the resolution to implement the local pavement warranty program.
Support. Support by Councilmember Earl. Discussion by council. General public. Yes, sir.
John Murray, on Maplewood from Harrison to Inkster, particularly at Gilman and Helen, there seems to be like a peeling or a flaking of the concrete we just put in. Would this warranty cover that? And could we have someone look into what is going on?
Yeah, that we can take under advisement under public comment, Mr. Murray, just to make sure so we don't get off topic. But this is about transportation money from the state. We do have a regular warranty for all projects, and certainly that project is not finished off.
I was just fishing.
So let's check it out. Where you're talking about, we'll talk afterward and check it out, yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, B5, the Senior Alliance Contract Amendment Number 2.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Fulton, would you like to come up?
Thank you. This is a small increase in the grant funding that we get from the Senior Alliance. It's a reallocation of unused funds from other programs. The contract ends September 30th of this year with a new contract starting October 1, but they are reallocating funds. It's a fee-for-service-based contract, which means it's based on units of service that we provide, and we bill and get reimbursed. And our classes for Tai Chi and arthritis exercise have very high attendance. We've had to add a second Tai Chi class. And so the more units of service we provide to individuals, the more funding that we can capture. So this is increasing the revenue amounts by a total of $2,500 for that program.
Thank you. Okay, motion in order.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Earl.
I move to approve contract amendment number 2 for services between the Senior Alliance and the City of Garden City for additional funds in the amount of $960 for evidence-based disease prevention, arthritis exercise, and $1,540 for evidence-based disease prevention, Tai Chi, and authorized community resource director to execute the documents.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Kerwin. Any discussion from the table? From the general public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. 2019 Garden City DDA Santaland Parade.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Councilmember Squires.
I move to adopt the following resolution for the 2018 Garden City DDA Santaland Parade, November 30th, 2019.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Kerwin. Comments from the table? From the general public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. B7, street solicitation, Garden City Goodfellows.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Kerwin.
I move to allow the Garden City Goodfellows permission to conduct on-street solicitation from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on November 29th, 30th, and December 1st at the intersections of Ford and Middlebelt, Ford and Merriman, Ford and Vinoy, and Middlebelt and Warren, subject to receipt of a valid hold harmless agreement by each participant in accordance with the city policy of on-street sales.
Support.
Support by Councilmember McCarge. Comments from the table? From the general public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, item 12, public comment. This is for all items that are not, that weren't on the agenda for tonight. Again, there's a 3-minute time limit, and anybody wishing to comment? Mr. Richard.
Mr. Richard again. I'm just curious if I could I know you guys can answer questions now. Seal chipping, when that's supposed to begin. We had the letters that went out. It was going to start in the fall. Being rather up to date on construction, I know that we're getting very late into the season. I would hate for it to turn out like Hubbard, to where we're just throwing bad money after bad money again, trying to complete a job a week before Christmas. So if we could get an email out or post it online, do something to let us know where we are in the process of when that's going to begin. So
Okay.
that's all I got. Thank you.
We may have an answer later. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Honorable Body and residents of Garden City. My name is Steve Chisholm. I'm the Director of Constituent Services for State Representative Joel Jones. Just left a different event and was trying to get here as soon as I could, but I wasn't here to address you guys earlier. First off, just wanted to say you guys had a great picnic, employee picnic. I enjoyed myself, and the representative and our staff did as well, just engaging with the citizens and, of course, enjoying the food. Secondly, today, well, I actually want to let you know the legislators are still working on the state budget, hoping there's no government shutdown, because you know what that means if there is a government shutdown. But right now, they're not making any progress on it just yet. Today, there was a press conference that was held outside of where they're building the new Fiat Chrysler assembly plant in Detroit, Michigan. It was a bipartisanship legislation that is being worked on to assist with expungement for our friends and family members who may have had a not so good past or made a mistake or two, and they've been living or going down the straight and narrow and trying to get things going on. So they're trying to make that much easier for those who are affected and can't get employment at this time. And I believe that's it. And if you guys do have any questions, the number to the office is 517-373-0849. Again, that's 517-373-0849. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Chisholm is also a city council member for Inkster,
Oh,
City of
yes.
Inkster, correct. So he's representing Joel Jones' office also, so just make a
Thank
point
you.
of that.
Very good. Any other public comments? Ms. Stoll?
Just real quick, as our DDA Chair Prosh mentioned earlier, we have our 5th and final Lucky Squirrel coming up on the 21st. It's sold out. We actually had to beg, borrow, and steal some more land downtown to allow about 20 more vendors to come in, so make sure you come out for that. The proceeds from the Lucky Squirrel all summer long have been being donated to the Straight Farmhouse Garden City Museum, and so they are well taken care of this summer by the Lucky Squirrel. But the other thing, chili cook-off is coming up. We need volunteers. We pay those volunteers via a donation to a charity of their choice here in Garden City. And we also are still looking for chili cooking teams. So get a team together. It can be a little expensive to do the chili because we ask that you make about 10 gallons of it. And as everyone here that's been there knows that most of the time we run out of that chili. So we've got 24 teams making 10 gallons apiece and we still run out. So you can go to a business or a place like that and ask them to actually sponsor your chili, and we will advertise that at your space. So keep that in mind. I was trying to get a kind of a police department against police department, fire department, so you know, talk to your guys.
Sounds like a challenge.
Thanks.
Okay, any other public comment?
I would just like to ask the council if, I know you guys did a lot of hard work over the last year about ordinances and how they're enforced, and it doesn't seem like they're being enforced the way they're supposed to. As a business owner who's trying to open a second business in Garden City, I'm not being very successful at it because I ask for permits and do the one thing, and I do what I'm supposed to do, and that's it. If they say, no, you can't do this, then I don't do it. The same thing happens to an ex-business person. They either get the same permit I do and then just don't do it, and then they just go ahead and do whatever they want anyway. And then there's no recourse to it. So why do we have ordinances if they're never enforced, ever? And I'm not talking about grass cutting. I'm talking about people that have a business and they want this sign. So they put it up on a Saturday, and then our ordinance officer goes over there and says, you weren't supposed to do this. Here's your slap on the hand. And then, boom, they have their sign. If I go and ask for a sign, they say, oh, you can't put it up. I don't put it up. So why do we even have these things, and why did you guys spend all that time, almost a year, working on how these ordinances are going to be enforced if nothing's happening to them? It's really ridiculous.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm not talking about what business goes where, but the council, the DDA, and the planning commission needs to sit down somewhere and get their acts together and decide what business you want and try to work together instead of fighting, which is going on now. I didn't promote the catering business, whatever you want to call it. My problem was when you start telling me I can't park in my parking lot, because the public parking lot belongs to me and everybody else that lives in Garden City. That's the problem I'm having with you. That's the part I was speaking about. Nobody's going to tell me I can't park in my parking lot. Now, you can tell me I can't cross Middleback Road in the middle. That's true. I have to go to the light. You got an ordinance for that. You got a law for that. You have no law that restricts me from parking in my parking lot, and I don't want to go down that route, because if from that route, it'll jump to something else.
We've already discussed that at the public hearing.
I know, but
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to give council and the city a quick update. My wife and I think it was about a week and a half ago, went to a town hall meeting where supposedly our congresswoman was, Tlaib. Just to let you know, we have no representation. While we were there, got there a good 15 minutes before she showed up. She shows up, comes in there. She represents Westland. She represents Wayne. She represents Dearborn. We don't exist. Not one mention of Garden City anywhere. I don't think she knows we're here ever since she got her one photo op with the mayor, where she came running in after the ceremony was over on Memorial Day, got picture taken, and then went running right back out. The only thing she talked about that hour and a half, and it made no sense to me, was if you get arrested for drinking under the influence. Councilmember Earl, you ever arrested anybody for drinking under the influence?
Unfortunately, yes.
No, no. Driving under the influence. I thought I heard it wrong, but that went on 4 different times. This is a person that's out there voting on what's going to happen with us. So next time that vote comes up, I suggest we go the other way. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did hear her say that, too.
Any other comments? No more public comments? Okay, seeing that, city managers report.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This follows up actually on a question we just had a moment ago. Councilwoman Kerwin's been asking about code compliance, and we've invested in the department a little bit. We're putting a full report together, but I wanted to ask the police chief, Tim Gibbons, if he can come up, just give us a few numbers before we go with the full report.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Council, and Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, you know, as council's aware, you've been in investment in ordinance enforcement. You moved it over to the police department in the last year and a half. And I just wanted to give you a brief update. What have we been up to? So when we took over, these are my 3 main goals: effective blight enforcement, reducing blight in the city of Garden City, affecting our responsiveness and our communication with citizens when they call in for a complaint, and making sure we're thoroughly documenting what we're doing so that if we're sued or if we face litigation in regards to ordinance enforcement, we're able to protect ourselves because we did it right and we documented that we do it right. So just to give you some idea, now we have a full-time ordinance officer and 2 part-time. They take approximately 17 new enforcement actions per day. That's new. That's in addition to follow-ups, court time, documentation, and communicating with residents about their concerns. And if you know ordinance enforcement, it requires a lot of explanation, a lot of time with the person you're trying to enforce the ordinance on, to get them to know what they're supposed to do and work with them, because that's one of our philosophies, is not just to run out and ticket, is to get people to make the change on their own, particularly when it comes to their property. Part of the way we did that was both enforcement, like I said, 17 new per day, but also education. In addition to the Golden Book, we've sent out letters to businesses regarding good ways to keep up their property and some of the ordinances that pertain to that. We've done things on Facebook. We did a blitz with the police department and ordinance officers where we took a significant number of enforcement action on abandoned cars, high grass, really cleaning up the neighborhoods. As far as improving our responsiveness, we have a part-time clerk, 4 days a week. She answers 27 new calls per day. In addition to documenting, that actually exceeds during those hours what our police department's getting at the front desk. And it's important to note that prior to the police department taking this over and you guys making that investment, it was one ordinance officer full-time by himself responding to complaints that came in through voicemail, having to call people back on his own, do his own documentation, do his own clerking, and still try and produce new enforcement actions. So we've taken that off, and now he's more out in the street. We're seeing a lot more positive results. You know, ordinance enforcement is one of those things. There's always going to be ordinances to enforce. You have to fight blight proactively. You have to, stay on it, because while you get one grass cut on one side of town, another one might go over 7 inches, and we got to get over there. So it's your ability to respond to the problems when they come in and be proactive and educating your public and traveling the town. And myself and Sergeant Arnowski make weekly trips around town. And I know you'll be able to see ordinance violations throughout town. We've got 12 years since we had sort of a downturn in our staffing here, and when it was one officer, and we've been about a year and a half now where we're starting to build. And really, this is our first season of ordinance enforcement the way we're doing it. And I see a lot of positive results. I see cleaned up properties. I know DDA Director Prosh was just talking about facade improvements and how that's occurring in the DDA. I know part of that is because our active ordinance enforcement. I know because we've had discussions with those businesses about improving their facade, and we're starting to see that construction, we're starting to see that investment pay off. Rome wasn't built in a day, but Rome's getting built, and I feel pretty positive about what we've been up to. You know, I gladly answer any questions. It's my goal at the end of the season, this is getting near our end of our busy season, to compile a report about, just get you some solid numbers about those enforcement actions and how much we've been doing, what we've been doing, and where we're going to go from here. But I'd be glad to answer any questions or, you know, any suggestions or any areas. We're open to it. If it's a problem, we want to fix it.
We'll put together a better report overall. This was just from a question earlier today, so we're already planning on having just general information. Thanks, Tim.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, thank
All
you,
right.
Chief.
To answer Mr. Richards' question about the chip seal, we're hoping for a lot more at this point. We met last week with them. Their hope is to try to finish off the whole city. We're going to find out in the next week or two exactly how much. Their issue has been preparation. Our spray patch is being done on roads that are, as the gentleman implied, we're building roads from scratch. Some of our roads are so bad that we're trying to get to the chip seal. So the expectation was a lot less spray patch before the chip seal. He thinks we can get to at least half the roads, to 3/4 of the roads we're talking about. His concern is you have to have hot weather or warm weather 2 weeks after it's laid. He goes, all the other road work, you have to have it done before warm weather. So we're going to find out in the next week or two. We'll put some kind of notice out, at least through our website, of how the new map's going to look. At least there's spray patching being done all over the place. That's going to be done before the season. And also, and that spray patch is just making the road smoother. The chip seal we're talking about is to last the road another 10 to 15 years.
If I may on that.
Sorry. Yep.
If they hold off on that and we have to push some of the streets till next year, are we locked in on material price for this year? Because I would imagine that they're probably like a net 90,
Yeah.
something like that. We're not paying up.
No, we're
front,
good.
But
Yeah, we're absolutely
we'll
good.
maintain that same value next year, so we're not going to lose service.
That, and we're looking at the same for some of our other road contractors, if they keep similar pricing, if we're happy with their work of the same prices for this year. But yes, that would be absolutely guaranteed for this contract that we already have. So it's same as you said, getting to the point of the end of the year and doing a project that should not be done at that time. We're not going to do that. We're going to we'll have to push some roads, possibly. That's not a final decision yet, but it's coming soon. Also, 2 other things that we're working on I want to bring to the council's attention over the next, hopefully the next month or so. Signs is one of them. There's been a question for months in the building department of talking about what do we do with some of these older signs that are no longer in compliance. So you're a business owner, you have a sign, the sign's fading out. You see a lot of auto body up and down Ford. If it's too big of a sign, if they go to fix it, by our law, they have to take that sign down and go half its size, whatever the ordinance was put in several years ago. The question is, if it's already established, it's a non-conforming use, if they're making a cosmetic change to it, just an aesthetic change, basically making it prettier, but it's the same sign, should they have to replace it, or do we say, okay, that's fine? If they're changing the whole sign, then they have to come in compliance with the new rules. And the new rules are a much smaller sign. So some businesses may hesitate even changing their sign for the fact that they would have to make it a smaller sign. Others may be doing it in a cloak of darkness, just assuming that no one's going to notice. But if it's a prettier sign, do we care? So that's the discussion we're having right now. Now, someone putting a brand-new sign up or a sign that was never in compliance from the start, that's a different animal. That would have to be with the new rules. So it's more of a business-friendly decision that we're looking to bring to the council to discuss in the future. But it's something that's pretty significant because we hear it from business owners. Been here forever, sign's been the same forever. If I want to clean it up, it's got to be gone. Well, that's something we may want to take a look at. That's number one. Number two, come across heavily now at this point with the roads being done is parking on the easements. And we discussed that a little bit, parking the swales. As we put in new roads, new asphalt roads, we're also taking out their parking, illegal parking actually, if you're parking on the swale, and going back to the original ditches, as they call them in Michigan, swales in Florida. What do? Allow people just to fill them back in. The issue is the water flow. So the water flow is supposed to go into these swales and work its way down down the street, but we've already had homeowners asking, when is the road going to be done, so I can go in the next day and just fill it in and park there illegally again. On the other hand, people saying, you took my parking away, I can't park there, my property values have gone down because I've just lost extra parking for my house. And we know there's a whole lot of homes, hundreds if not 1,000 or more, that are parking right now illegally filling in their swale. So the discussion we're having in-house is coming up with a process where if they follow this step-by-step process, the French drain with a limestone stone in there, at least the water will flow off the roads into those swales, but yet they are still able to park there. But we're talking about changing our parking ordinance as far as what's allowed to be parked off the side roads. So that's, again, something that we see that's going to become bigger. First, there's a lot of homes that have filled in without doing it properly. And the other side is, at this point, as we put a new road in, we're opening up those ditches, which is not a very friendly response to the homeowners. They have a new road, but they just lost parking that they were always using. So we're trying to look for some kind of compromise with the residents that clearly need that extra parking and are possibly going to do it in the cloak of darkness again anyway. Is there something we could do to keep the water off the road? So we're working on that. Those are two hot topics right now to bring back to the council for future discussion once we iron those topics out. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Earl.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First, to the police and fire chief and the police and fire department, a huge, huge thank you. We have a youth in this city that has some pretty serious health concerns, and they made a special effort to make sure that he enjoyed a very fun day, and they've committed to continue to support this youth, so I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Can't get this one wrong. The GC, or the Garden City Elementary PTA, is hosting a color run Sunday, September 22nd, 1 to 3 p.m. at the Garden City Middle School. It supports the GCE PTA. If it is rained out, the rain date is September 29th. Kids kindergarten through 6th grade are free, and 7th through adult are just $10. It's a great event to help the PTA. I wholeheartedly agree with the comment that we need to train anybody that's on a commission, a committee, anything that the city puts on to help the city. These individuals are there to help the city and the citizens and the businesses and everything else. Why they're not getting training, it should be mandatory training, in my opinion. I don't know. I understand it used to happen, and then many, many years ago it was removed. It needs to be re-put in place, and it should be, the city covers that training, not people have to pay for it themselves. So I really hope that that's something that we can address. And last, kids are back in school, and I'm going to implore our citizens and anybody transient coming through the city, if you see a school bus with the flashing lights, stop. And I'm asking our police department, absolutely zero brakes on that. If somebody goes through, I don't care who they are, write them a ticket, please. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller, I apologize.
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember McCarge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember McCarge. Go ahead. We're just going to mix this up tonight.
Okay. First of all, when we're talking about having our information put in a local newspaper, unfortunately, we don't have a local newspaper. Garden City Observer no longer exists. That is not Garden City administration's fault. It's a fact of life. But I really wish we could think of even better ways of getting information out to the public. Sometimes what's put on Facebook is good. It gets the thought, and the ideas running, but sometimes it doesn't have all of the facts. So I know that the Positively Garden City, I'm not who does that.
Which one?
Anyway, Facebook has gotten to be such a good avenue. I think the city should look at putting more information on a Garden City Facebook page as far as our meetings, our, those types of things. Also, anything that's controversial, and come on, we know what's going to be controversial. Put it on the front page of the city website, not the last page, in the last sentence. You know, put it on there and say, this is an important issue you may want to become involved with. The council, using the information provided by administration, shame on us if our opinions are changed just because, everybody's yelling at us. Our opinions should be based on facts, information we've received from the administration, boards and commissions, and feedback from the public, to me, is extremely important. But it's got to be all of those things. So we shouldn't be, as a council, afraid of having standing room only here. Bring it on. We need that. So we need to get that information out. And I'm not sure exactly, but Facebook might be one of the ways. Talking about signs on some of the big road improvement, they put this as a project was funded by, I think that's a great idea. People in Garden City need to know that road millage money is going to good use, and I like the signs, so thank you. Before I forget, I would like to offer my condolences to the family of Peggy Burklow. Peggy worked in the police department for years. She retired from there as a secretary, but she was also very active in the community, and she will be missed. Mr. Prosh, thank you for the presentation. I greatly appreciate it. Now, so I'm going to be leaving for California in a couple weeks before the next meeting, fortunately, to be there when my granddaughter is born. So as much as I am going to not want to miss the next meeting, I'm going to. So normally I would not, the public meeting or public hearing, the council doesn't comment on. They comment when it comes up for a vote, then we have our comments. I won't be here. I assume that if I'm the only council member, they will go along with the vote. So I am going to give some of my opinions on it tonight. So please bear with me. See if I can get this straight, because I try to keep my notes going. Okay, with the zoning administrator, I kind of learned that if it's not in writing, then it's not, and it's not clear, then I have a problem with it. Who is the zoning administrator? Is there 1, 2, 3? Who is? And I know the council had talked about, I've heard council people talk about the fact that the CBD decisions should, come before council. Well, I'm sorry, the zoning administrator is not city council, so I'm definitely opposed to that.
Did you want to answer for that?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right, so all zones, and we'll talk about this next meeting, I assume, but all zones are decided. What we're talking about here is really a small segment. We're talking about who determines a similar use. So in the C1, right now in this city, a C1, C2, business, C3, the zoning administrator determines similar use.
Who is the zoning administrator?
Matt Miller, who's American certified planners, nationally recognized. Yes, he was the zoning administrator in Wayne for 18 years. Plus, we have Mario representing us through McKenna, who is also nationally certified as a zoning administrator. But be very clear, the zoning administrator decides similar use in the entire city except the one block of the CBD. So this is not a unusual, why is the zoning administrator making a decision in this? It's not the whole city at this point. We're talking about one block is currently under the Planning Commission's decision. So if the Planning Commission should make final decision, we got to change all of our zones to go that way, because right now we have one zone that doesn't include that.
Why would we need to change?
The discussion
There's a reason
actually-
the CBD is a unique area in the city. I'm not saying,
Sure,
I'm trying to get information, I'm not, you
Yeah,
know.
the discussion was through council of, if the planning commission makes a decision that may not be appropriate, what's
In
the
our
outcome?
opinion, in
your
our
Yes.
opinion.
Or, well, legal opinion also, then what is the repercussion? So the council is, at meetings, have discussed, we should have some kind of backup final say. But as we're talking about, this one piece tonight is literally, is a video store similar to a record store? That's the only thing that's a similar use in the CBD. The rest of the city, the zoning administrator makes that decision, no one else does. But we're not talking about, do they have final say over everything the planning commission does? Because there's a whole lot more decisions, planning commission and the ZBA decisions made, that we have no say over anything, the council. Now, going back to your other question is, he works for the council, I work for the council, even our contractors work for the council. So although we're saying the council says we should have it in-house so we have final say, it's not the city council itself that's going to want to look at every item. The idea is, there is some response. The councils can say to staff, change your idea or change your mind, or also you're terminated for bad decisions. The council has no say at this point. Now, it came about as this other issue was going on of who has final say? And it was described at this table, council saying, well, I don't think we should be liable by just outside volunteer groups as much as they're great and dedicated. They make the decision, and that's it. The council's hands off. Now, there's 100 other decisions the planning commission can make other than this one we're talking about tonight. Tonight literally is about who decides if it's a similar use in the CBD. Is a record store a video store? Well, right now, the planning commission makes that decision. This would say the zoning administrator would make the decision, just like the zoning administrator makes a decision throughout the entire city. This is not we're changing the world. We're talking about the one block area, but
Okay, so it's a very, very narrow.
In the whole
And I'd have
city,
to really
yeah.
read this again. Sometimes the words, you know, but very, very small. But zoning administrator, so that can change actually by whomever we have working
Yes.
that has that,
representing the city, yes.
that who has the credentials to be.
Yes.
Okay. I guess what I'm confusing this with then is when the planning commission, they send things to us and we have to either just not deal with it because then it's approved, you know, then it goes through, or we have to deny it. I mean, I just don't understand.
Some things they have final say that could be appealed to the ZBA, but those things do not come back to the city council. Ordinance change like this, the city council, it comes back to, yes.
But we've had things come to us from planning
Special
commission.
land,
You know,
special land use.
Special land,
That's what-
use. So
Yeah.
that
we
has
have.
to come through us.
Yes, well, and similar to what we're doing tonight. Planning commission made a decision, and it comes back to the council if the council wants to agree with that decision. So there are things that do come back to us, but not everything by any means.
Right,
yes.
and that's why I don't understand why this, I guess I didn't clearly understand why it has to come back to a zoning administrator. If-
Well, it wouldn't come back to, they would make the decision before it even went. So a record store comes in, our list says video store. Someone in the office in City Hall would say, well, they're similar, so therefore it's allowed. There wouldn't be any other
Oh, it
involvement.
won't go to the planning
No, it
commission
would
at
not
all?
at that point. The similar use would be
Okay.
decided by the zoning administrator, like it is throughout the entire city.
Okay. Okay, so I understand the procedure. I'm not, okay, I understand that. And then let's say, let's say the other businesses or the council or anybody else has a differing opinion, says, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, we don't think that's similar use. Is there no recourse?
By, if
By-
there, what do you mean?
by
If-
us,
By the
if I-
planning commission? No, the planning commission makes that decision. So they would say, no, a record store is not allowed in the downtown because it's not on the list, even if a video store is listed. No, it's not allowed. It does not come back to the council.
Okay, but the zoning administrator is the one who's going to make that determination
Yes.
before it goes to the planning.
Now it would, yeah, the planning commission wouldn't even make that decision anymore. The zoning administration would make it in-house. So like keep in mind now that CBD is only this big. The
Right.
DDA, as Mr. Pross showed, is big, but in the DDA, there's C1, C2, there's other zones. Those other zones aren't discussed by the planning commission or DDA or anyone else. They are decided by the zoning administrator. We're back to just that one block of the CBD. The city no longer makes the decision if it's acceptable or not as a business downtown. That is given to the planning commission. So the council is out of it. Now, I'm not saying I'm one way or the other on this. We're talking about similar use. Who makes the determination? I think it was somewhat misled today, the way it was stated, made it sound like we're picking one area and we're changing it all. Actually, the rest of the city is what we're asking it to be. So there's similarity in there across the board. Now, certainly, the CBD is very important in the downtown district, but remember, the DDA, again, covers several areas. It's not DDA as CBD. They are two opposite things.
Okay. And my next thing is on Amendment E, permitted use and structures. I think that's redundant.
It is.
I
At this
think that's
point,
redundant.
it was
For one
orig-
thing,
yes.
because if we were given a legal opinion, that we were given a legal opinion that restaurants incorporate, I don't know if that's the word, banquet
Restaurants do,
facilities.
yes.
So it's redundant.
It is.
So I would vote no on it. I would vote no on it because, it's redundant, and I think that what we need to do is to make sure that we have legal definitions. We need to define in legal terms.
Yeah.
So, I'm
That
just,
was part of the public hearing in advance, and to just pull it, but it is redundant. That's what was going to be discussed also
Yeah.
in the presentation, that it is already allowed by law under the category restaurant standard. It is fully described as a banquet facility. So adding banquet facility is just redundancy. Yes, correct.
now, what I'm trying to be careful of is not, my personal opinion about whether something should go in someplace or not is absolutely irrelevant. My personal opinion does not count. What I have to do is support the ordinances that are on the books. So, with the legal opinion that restaurants include banquet facilities, see, then it's not my opinion that we shouldn't have or should have banquet facilities illegal. But that's where I think that E, I would say, is redundant, and I would not go with that. And I'm going to move it along, because I know you're going to have this debate. I'm hoping you have a good debate the next time with the council. I don't know if the public can even, when they can at all.
No,
Okay. But then.
crossing the street.
The street. For one thing, with the street parking, you're right, sir. You can park there, it's a public parking, you can park. That's not the issue. What the issue is for a facility to get a permit, to build a facility, and I'm probably gonna get the legal stuff all, screwed up talking about it. But they have to prove that they have enough parking for their facility. And what the ordinances we're looking at is saying, yes, you have to prove that you have parking on this side of the, either Ford or, Middle Belt, that you have enough parking to facilitate your building. It does, now, if somebody comes there to that banquet hall that night and says, I'm parking over there, they can. But for the building or planning to say, yes, you can do this, that owner has to prove they have enough proper parking. And do I think proper parking should include parking across from Ford Road or Middle Belt as part of the approved plan for that building? No, I don't. I think it's a safety issue. And the only thing else, again, on the second one, which makes a lot more sense, I would like to know, define block, as, again, it's defining, we have to make sure we know, because in 10 years, 15 years, people can, change the meaning of things. So legally, what does block as, on the same side, block, does that mean 2 miles down the block? Does it mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know.
Wrapped around with the streets around it. So the block, whatever absent, Central, Middle Belt, Ford, and Dawson? We have the next, whatever the block is, like Moose Lodge would have Middle Belt, Ford, what's the road right there, John? What's the alley behind it?
Yeah, but
So
it's
that
just-
block, basically,
yeah,
that's
it's
square.
so-
Yes,
Okay, where maybe it intersects with the
streets,
street.
all streets are wrapped
Parcel
around.
And then,
So Moose Lodge, my understanding, has about 15 parking spots.
Okay, but that would mean, so a block would be defined intersections of streets?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it should be also noted that, I think it wasn't stated earlier, and seems a little misleading. The crossing the street for the CBD area, right now, our rule is you can count parking across the street throughout the entire city. So if Plato's wanted to expand, and they talked to Aldi across the street, and Aldi said, yes, we got 20 more spots, you can use ours. Our rule doesn't stop that.
Well,
So-
maybe that rule needs to be changed.
and that's what I was going to get to, is right now, and I just want to, because again, it seems like, why would we want to change the Middle Belt? That you can right now, True Value Hardware, they can, or not True, is it True?
Ace.
Ace Hardware can use parking across the street. The venue uses parking right across the street at Middlework. Allowed or not, I'm not sure, but you see the cars parked. By law, every street in our city can be crossed with parking across the street. This is not unique. What's unique is the CBD, the one block area, says you can't count across the street. And I'm pretty sure Albert's on the Alley, as everyone tells me, parked everywhere across the street. The Moose Lodge parked across the street. Everybody parked. So what we're asking for is, so everyone just generally watching understands, it's not the council or the administration is saying, let's have people cross streets illegally and everyone's going to die. It's the rule of the city across the board except this one spot.
Then, when they're building, or when they put up, Sportsman use a bad sample, but let's say, that shoe store that was there. Yeah, when they were
Payless?
when they went in for their building permit, did they have to prove that they had enough parking in that area? Or could use any parking anywhere in the city and it'd be?
No, it's 300 feet from the building is the max that you can distance from the building itself, yes.
Okay, so that might have meant across the street on Middle Belt.
Oh, absolutely. It
So
could be, if it
maybe-
wasn't the CBD, it would be allowed parking across the street.
Okay, so maybe that's the whole issue. Maybe that is the ordinance that needs to be changed, that you have to have parking. I mean, that seems to be, instead of making it unsafe in the Ford and Middle Belt area, maybe we
Yeah.
need to make it safer.
Well, it's Merriman. You can cross Merriman right now. You can have parking across the street from Merriman or Ford and Merriman. It's allowed throughout the city except this one area. So when the consideration of the council is, do we remove that limitation so that you can have parking across the street, which is public parking? Right now, you can't in that one block. So the question was, should we take that one piece away? Because it
No.
doesn't exist anywhere else in the city. Or do we go the other way and limit it across the entire city? Because it seems to keep that and say, where people are going to die, which is, I've heard this, how can you even consider such a thing? And when I explain, well, that's how the whole city's rule is, people tend to roll back a little bit and go, oh, I thought you guys were actually trying to open up a door just in one spot. They didn't realize the door was open throughout
But
the
the
whole city.
reality is, there is no other facility as big as the one that was being
That's
projected.
the catch-22.
That's the
yes.
catch.
It's the
That
biggest,
little shoe store, yeah, they could park anywhere, but they're not gonna have 100 parking, or Aldi's, you're not gonna have 80 cars there, so they have to park across the street.
Correct.
So the reality is, but do we need to legally clean it up? Well, yeah, then we
Yeah.
need to, but we don't make one area unsafe just we make the whole thing safe, and
Yeah.
maybe we say throughout the city you have to have.
the maximum available parking, so everyone understands, is the exact same for a small gift shop as it would be for the Moose Lodge or a large banquet facility. The same amount of space for parking for maybe 1 or 2 people an hour coming into a store is the same as 400 or 500 people in a big building. And that kind of makes you say, that's a question.
Oh, for the other areas?
Yeah, well, right now, like Hershey Shoes has the same amount of space as a banquet facility or a small gift shop. So the question is, for economic development, if we're trying to change the downtown or any other area of the city, one of the first things any professional economic development director is going to say, what kind of parking do we have for the businesses? You can't attract a business if you don't have spots. Dave & Buster's, I looked on the website not too long ago, because people have said, let's have a Dave & Buster's downtown. 300 to 400 parking spots for a Dave & Buster's. clearly Dave & Buster's could not come down to our downtown. We don't have that much as it is, but we do have a sea of asphalt. So we have to make an environment for business-friendly parking for these businesses that we want to attract. And by saying a gift shop has to have the same amount of parking as a banquet facility, kind of
Well,
makes you
wait a
say,
minute.
maybe we need more parking for a bigger business.
And I guess I don't understand that ordinance, that if you have a banquet facility that holds 500, I thought there was a equation, a math equation that says,
It's-
okay, well,
it's-
that's what they were saying at these meetings I've attended. that-
It's 300 feet from the building itself.
Period.
Is the amount of
There's
cars,
nothing
yes.
about, when, at the planning commission, or when they have to say, they don't have to count how many parking spaces are, and they don't have to do that. How come every meeting I've gone to that they've been doing
I
that?
don't understand your question.
The
How many
banquet,
how many
I'm gonna have
spots?
to use the banquet
So
facility.
as many spots as they would have that's available to them. Now, in that 300 foot, if one of the other businesses next door, like the Moose Lodge, has buildings next to them. Right now, again, I understand the Moose has 15, maybe they have a couple more. That means the maximum capacity of the Moose Lodge forever is 45 people. And I think we're all pretty sure we've been in a Moose Lodge at least once, and I have been for pancake breakfast, there's a lot more than 45 people. That means they have to get parking somewhere else. Well, they can't cross the street, cross Ford. That means they have to get somebody else, other business around them, to give them additional spots. Otherwise, there's going to be a sign on their building that says capacity 45 people. Now, the Chase Bank on the corner of that block may not be open very often and says, you know what, clean up any beer bottles, but you can count some of our parking. So now the Moose Lodge has the ability to have a higher capacity in their building. But if
they
everyone
have to-
says no, they're done.
But don't they have to come up with that at a planning commission
Yes.
meeting? Or okay,
Well-
that's all I'm asking.
Well, but that would be their capacity. Now, if that changes, like say next door, Orange Jewelers says, here, you can use all of our spots. Their capacity can go up. That doesn't come back to
Well,
the
that's what
planning
I mean.
commission or anything.
That's what I mean. It can-
It's initially, what do you have the ability
What do
to
you
use?
have,
Yes.
so they have to go to these businesses and say, hey, this is, you're closed, can we use this? And so, and that's good.
And-
What I'm saying is, you can't open a facility and not have proper parking.
Well, no, let's go back. If they have parking for 100 people and a building can hold 700, you can open it with 100 people. Yeah, I mean, the
Right,
capacity would be
right,
100,
right,
yeah.
Right, and
So
I
we-
know that's one of the
Yeah.
things that was being looked at, is
Yes.
maybe the capacity was too, they could reduce the capacity and then have safe parking. So, and I hate to use that specific, because it's not about one business,
No.
it's about.
The question becomes, and why these came a point, is first of all, legally, are they allowed to be there? And that's, someone mentioned lawsuits earlier. My position is to steer us clear of icebergs. What we do with parking, that's not an issue. At this point, it's either, the question is, for the parking for this situation, how big of a business can the Moose Lodge handle? If they don't have enough, that building itself, not the Moose. If you only have so many parking spots and that's all they're getting, there's not going to be much of a business at that location, and that person probably needs to know they've got limited parking. Do not count across the street, because legally we don't allow it. Same with this banquet facility. If it can hold up to, it's 600 sitting, 800 standing. We have very few buildings anywhere around here that can handle 600 people sitting for a party. If the high school wants to use it for a prom or anything else, but we only say they can only have 260, because that's all that's allowed within that 300-foot area, why are we not utilizing the buildings to the capacity? When we talk about economic development and hiring someone, as we had the last couple of budgets, I go back to the point, we probably want to create an environment that would really accelerate our
A
economic
safe
development.
environment.
Yeah, and that's where the parking on the block came about as a
Okay,
consideration.
in the block, and I
Yes.
understand that, but cross-street parking.
Sure.
And I would certainly want to make sure that if any ordinance we did would be included, would say, okay, 300 feet or the block, but definitely not across. And if we need to change all the entire cities then to be safe, that's better than, to me. And it's just, people can park anywhere they want. But you have to have, when you develop a business, you have to at least start out with enough safe parking. You don't create unsafe conditions.
Yeah.
Anyway, the only thing else I would say is I thank everyone who came up to the podium. I think that everyone was pretty civil. Little tinge here and there, but I thought it was done quite well. Thank you for coming up, and I will see you after my granddaughter is born. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Squires.
I too wanted to extend my sympathies to the family of Peggy Burklow. You know, she was a fixture here for many, many years, and she'll be sadly missed. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kerwin.
The one meeting I have lots of questions. I'm just gonna try and go this fast, really fast.
Oh, good.
And you don't
Not
have
the
to,
only one.
you don't have to answer anything tonight, we can come back. We were given this packet here while we were sitting here. And these are all the
I haven't seen it.
permits that were asked
Yes.
by this hot topic, which is the banquet hall. My question is, I buy a building in the city. I haven't gone before the planning commission yet, but it's my building. I come and get a permit because I want to
Demolition permit.
rip down a wall or put new fixtures or whatever it is. Am I allowed to do that without going to, in front of the planning commission?
Yes.
As long as it's not
100%.
anything that's in violation of,
It sounds counterintuitive, and certainly I questioned that process some time ago, is how do we allow someone to start doing work on a building or demolish the interior?
because it's my building, right?
Yes, without going to the planning commission. Seems counterintuitive, that's wrong, but here's the point. If you've got a strip mall of 6 different units, you just bought it, and you have no tenants yet, you can't touch that building, clean it up. It's called white boxing. It's real generic white boxing. Fix the electrical, fix the plumbing, do any kind of work inside to make it look like they're presentable. If you can't come to us, like thinking the other way, if you can't come to us and say, well, this one's gonna be a CVS, this one's gonna be a gift store, this is gonna, you can't. You don't even, you just bought the building, you just wanna clean it up. Yes, you can come to the department, get permits, demolition permits, and plumbing permits to fix the toilets that are flowing, the electrical permits for the bad wiring that was put in 40 years ago, and still not go to the planning commission for a final decision. You're allowed to do that. You're not running it, you're not turning it into that business and doing other things. It is absolutely called white boxing. It's a term that everyone understands. It's just misleading when it was stated, of course, that these people were moving forward and the city kept giving them permits because we knew we were going to jam them. No, this happens all the time. Seems counterintuitive. It seems like you should wait. But it's just cleaning up your property you own. It's nothing, no shady things going on there, no permits given in advance because we know what we're going to do. We're going to push them through. It's called white boxing. I think it's misleading to say that we gave permits before they had permission to do anything. Sounds like something shady's going on. Absolutely not. And you think about it, the unit of 6 units, that's what you would do. You wouldn't sit there with these garbage buildings and then say, hey, by the way, I have now a cell company. And no, they're not going to come into a shady-looking building. That's Weinstein. He did some great work on his buildings down there, Weinstein, across from McDonald's. They're cleaning up the interiors. They clean up the facade. Technically, we would say you cannot get any of those permits until you tell us exactly who's going in there. They got permits, and nobody's in there yet.
Okay.
There's nothing behind the scenes on that.
My second question is regarding public hearings, which I think we had way too many tonight. It's 9:30. Mr. Miller, you said that they're put in the Livonia, Canton, and Westland paper, and that it's posted at City Hall. Is it also on the city website and the public access channel?
Yes and yes.
Front page?
It's not on the front page.
Please
but-
put it in the front page.
Okay. It's, that's fine. It would be an action of the council, I guess. I mean, we put it in the department that has the hearings. So,
But a lot of people are not internet savvy. They may just like.
Well, we can discuss that later. I just wanted to make sure where we're posting them,
Yes,
so
it's-
everybody else.
we're
all
meeting the
legally-
legal requirements.
All legally posted, yes.
But we can talk about the other issue later. I'm trying to get through. Where am I at? The Lucky Squirrel, I know that Ms. Dole talked about it on the 21st, but they're also doing, donating used, gently used or new boots for the veterans. If you plan on going and you have a pair of snow boots laying around or work boots that are in good shape, bring them with you, because they do that. Kelly Bailey collects those there. I wanted to thank John Prosh for his presentation. It was very informative, and I actually did learn something from it. Trying to hurry. Where are we at? I know. As for Mr. Richards and Councilman Earl, and I believe you've also spoke about it, I do believe that our boards need education. As council people, we go and get that as well. When I was new, I had to go to an MML, a Michigan Municipal League. It's a seminar. It teaches you how to be a new council member, maybe what kind of questions to ask. There's still times I don't know what to ask until it comes in front of me because I haven't been in that situation. I do, and I'm sure everybody else here appreciates the volunteers. volunteering can be a very thankful to us, but thankless job. I think if you want to make your best educated decision for our city, you should be educated. And I really do believe we should bring that back.
I think MML may have some programs, either we can bring somebody in-house to speak, or there are some seminars around that we can send people to.
And what I like is I can ask the guy or lady next to me, how do we do this? But if I want to make my own decision, I can call the MML and ask them.
Yeah.
And it's not a swayed decision or things like that. As for Peggy Burklow, my condolences goes out to her family. She was a fine lady, and she was quite the character. When I was younger, she would sit behind me at my softball games and heckle me. She was a great lady, and she's going to be missed. Well, I know I got something else. We're just going to call it that. And last but not least, I am officially the mother of a teenager. Today is her birthday. She just turned 13, and I want to wish Gracelyn a happy birthday. And I'm done.
I'm sure she's sleeping now.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple things. I'll try and make mine quick. On the training issue, I know I did talk to some people at Planning Commission that asked about it. Apparently, in the past, there was a fund set up in that department, and back in the day, whenever, before, I think any of us were on here, it was taken away, and I told them, whatever we can find, we'd be more than happy, I'm sure, as a council, to get them the training and conferences or whatever else they need. I agree 100% they need it. Council needs it. Anything we can do to help, I think it's, to make informed decisions, I think it's very, very valuable. I want to thank everybody that showed up tonight for all 11 public hearings. I agree with some, I disagree with some, but that's how we make our decisions, or should make our decisions. I really didn't have very many thoughts set in stone on how anything was going to go. And next time, or when we vote, the public won't be able to speak when we have the vote. So it was important to have your opinions heard tonight. I believe the mayor and the council, Councilmember Lynch, who weren't here, will watch it, listen to the comments, and hopefully we can all make the best decision possible. I'm sure we won't make everybody happy, and including everybody at the table. It can't be done. I haven't seen it done in 4 years here, that every decision was met with overwhelming support. But I think we, as a council, need to hear the voices of the public and try and make the best decision possible and as informed a decision as possible. So I do want to thank everybody for coming out and giving their opinion and their thoughts. Having said that, with no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Food.